Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. We're looking at the Waiver Wire Report. We'll probably hang out for a good 30, 40 minutes tonight here. So I'm going to go over the Waiver Wire Report listed on thefantasyfellowship.com. There is a link in the description below. I'm going to look at some comments real quick before we get started. But we got a lot to get to today, a lot of things happening on the Waiver Wire week. It's probably one of the more exciting Waiver Wire weeks that we've had so far. So good evening to you, Sir Aiden. Hope you're having a good night. Sports Dog, I'd like to get an IR player, but when I try it asks me to drop a player. So when they come off IR, I have to drop a player to keep the IR player. So why do I need to drop a starter to get IR? If this is Sports Dog, if this is ESPN, you have the Manage IR button, and anybody that is IR eligible, you can just pop into here. And then in order for me to, so if I wanted to activate Tua or Gerald Everett, I'm going to have to, I'll have to hit Manage IR. I'm going to hit Activate on one of these guys, whatever one I wanted. And then in order to get them on my roster, I would have to drop a player to make room for them. So I currently have my entire bench filled up. I have to make room for those IR players to get them back up my lineup. I guess I'm confused. I hope that helps. I'm not sure what the question is exactly, but in order to move someone to IR, they need to have the IR next to their name, or they need to have the O next to their name. And then when you move them down, you get a free roster spot. So eventually you'll have to move them back up and cut somebody from that list. So I hope that helps. Let me know if I need to clear that up. Good evening, Justin. Hope you're having a good night. Aiden says he's streaming Burrow this week. Or is there any better options? I'm glad you asked. Let me just scroll down here and take a peek at our quarterbacks. I do want to talk about the injuries that we have to go over, but as far as streaming quarterbacks this week, Joe Burrow against Green Bay, that's fine. I'm not sure if the Green Bay Packers' best cornerback, Jair Alexander, is going to play in this one. And especially if the Bengals get T. Higgins back, that could be a good thing. And we're also watching Joe Mixon. If Joe Mixon doesn't play, that might mean a little bit more passing. So I like Joe Burrow, but I think my stream of the week is going to be Daniel Jones right now. Justin saying Minnesota D, Jets, Falcons D, Pats D, rank the 4. If I had to rank the 4, I'm going Pats D for sure. No question against Houston. That one's the clear number 1. Jets, Falcons, I don't even know who's going to win that game. I feel pretty good about Minnesota at home against the Lions, so I'll rank them 2. And then in between the Jets and the Falcons, I suppose I'll go with the Falcons defense as number 3, Jets number 4. And yeah, the TikTok is doing pretty well. Check out the Fantasy Fellowship TikTok. I think there's a link in the description below. And we'll see, man. I didn't know I played you this week. We'll have to look at that matchup later. Javonte Williams is getting the workload soon. Yep, we just have to be patient. We kind of knew that it would take him a month or 2 to get rolling. It's looking good, though, for Javonte Williams. We just need him to just, hold on to the ball and keep making good plays when he is called. He looked really good on a couple of runs last week. So good evening, Eduardo. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And before I get into some of the questions, I do want to cover a lot of the waiver wire stuff. So we'll get to some, for sure, sit questions for tomorrow night. But I want to look at some of these injuries that we have to monitor before the waiver wire run goes through tonight. So Jimmy Garoppolo, we don't know what's going on with the calf injury. It sounds like Trey Lance is going to be the starter. So if Trey Lance is available, I'm trying to pick him up wherever I can. Teddy Bridgewater is going to be in the concussion protocol. He's really only valuable in Superflex League, so if you're waiting on him, might be a good idea to just snag Drew Lock if you're desperate at quarterback. Joe Mixon, ankle sprain. He's questionable for week 5. Samaje Perine should be on your waiver wire lists tonight. David Montgomery, though, I have to update this. He is out for the next 4 to 5 games. They have a bye week, I think, in week 9 or 10. So we're not going to see David Montgomery for a good while here. Damian Williams is the guy that I'm going to probably recommend as the pickup of the week. And then Logan Thomas, he had a hamstring. We don't know if he's going to play in this one. They don't really have a good backup tight end. It's Ricky Seals-Jones. So if you need a tight end, I guess that's the guy that would be the next man up. DJ Chark's got a fractured ankle. He's likely out for the season. So long live Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones. They're going to be in for good seasons likely the rest of the way. And then just injuries to monitor. Amari Cooper, Reynolds, and Marquez Callaway all left last week's game, but they were able to return. So we'll look at the quarterbacks real quick here. In terms of 8-man, 10-man leagues, I'm sure some of these guys might be available. I do like Joe Burrow going up against Green Bay, but there's still a lot of factors that I have to watch before I recommend starting Joe Burrow. I want to see if Higgins plays. I want to see if Mixon plays. And I also want to see if Jair Alexander plays. But either way, it's a home game against Green Bay. Green Bay's going to put up points. Joe Burrow's going to probably have to play keep up. So if he gets Higgins in, I like Joe Burrow quite a bit two-play keep-up. Derek Carr, a home game against Chicago Bears. He's about 63% rostered. He could be a nice fringe quarterback one this week. Baker Mayfield against the Chargers. I'm probably not trying to get him in my lineups. He's maybe even a fringe quarterback too for Superflex leagues. I do like Kirk Cousins, though. I guess Aiden's question earlier about streaming Burrow. I mean, Kirk Cousins at home against the Lions seems like a pretty good spot here too. I do like Trevor Lawrence against Tennessee. We saw Tennessee just lose to the Jets, so good things are possible. I think Lawrence and that offense are starting to settle in and get James Robinson and Chenault rolling, which is good to see. Justin Fields here, about 37% rostered at Las Vegas. We'll see what this offense looks like without David Montgomery, but I think Damian Williams will fill in just fine. It looks like, Darnell Mooney appears to be the favorite target for Mr. Fields. Daniel Jones is my favorite pickup of the week. The Cowboys do allow a good amount of fantasy points to the quarterback position. It's at Dallas. You would expect Dallas defense to allow the Giants kind of do what they need to do on offense. I mean, he just threw 402 yards of offense against the Saints. So I like Daniel Jones. We'll see if Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton can get back on track. Matt Ryan in London against the Jets. I really like the London games because you wake up and basically you got football ready to go. So I'm excited about this one. Matt Ryan, it's a home game for the Falcons. Getting the Jets, he should be good for 2 or 3 touchdowns on this one. Jameis Winston against Washington. I know Washington, they're like one of the worst teams against the wide receiver position and the quarterback position. I just don't know if I trust it. Tua Tagovailoa, we'll see if he starts getting some things back this week. He's probably not going to play this week, but maybe next week. Ben Roethlisberger against Denver, no thanks. Teddy Bridgewater still in concussion protocol. Trey Lance. So I did say Daniel Jones is the stream of the week, but if Trey Lance is if he's hanging on your wire, he's the pickup of the week because he could potentially have the most value the rest of season. Sam Darnold against Philly. He's been a rushing touchdown fiend the last 4 games here. And Mac Jones getting against Houston. Let me know if you guys have any questions on some of these bottom tier quarterbacks. But for me, I really like Daniel Jones at Dallas this week. Kenny Golladay looked pretty good last week as well. So let's get caught up on some questions. Justin says, AB, Julio, Deontay Johnson, Woods, Tim Patrick start 2. I'm starting Robert Woods against Seattle on Thursday Night Football. I know people are frustrated with Robert Woods, but I mean, he's gotten over 12 PPR points in 3 out of 4 games. He's due for a big game soon. I like the floor. He has scored 2 touchdowns, and I just think some of those numbers are going to slide his way. I don't know if Julio plays, and even if he does play, I don't know if I trust it. So for me, I'm looking at AB, Deontay Johnson, and probably Robert Woods. Tim Patrick, just a low volume day against the Steelers. I'm not sure I'm excited about that. So if I had to rank them, I like Deontay, Woods, AB, Patrick, and Julio in that order. Who would you drop, Wolf? Would you drop Will Fuller for Sterling Shepard? I definitely would. Sterling Shepard, if he's hanging out there, man, that's a good smash grab because we just know in PPR leagues when he's on the field, man, he's going to get pummeled with a lot of targets. I think he's Daniel Jones's favorite target, so I am a fan of that. I don't know if we're ever going to trust Will Fuller for fantasy. He's always dinged up. It just seems like it's always something with Will Fuller. Justin says he might get a Justin Jefferson jersey. Can we rep JJ and Lamb? Yeah, I got a CeeDee Lamb jersey, and unfortunately, I got the AJ Brown jersey. It's just been a rough start here to the season for the Titans offense. Stafford about to feast on the Seahawks. And yes, if you guys want to head to thefantasyfellowship.com, I did post. Even if you just go to the homepage and you look down here, fantasy points allowed by position. This really helps me make some decisions when you guys are asking questions. But Stafford going up against the Seahawks allow the 6th most points to the quarterback position. They've allowed 8 touchdowns. 1,243 passing yards. That's the 2nd most the 3rd or 4th most in the league so far. They're good for 22 points here. So the Seahawks, very generous against the wide receivers. They're also very generous against the running back. And you see here, they're top 10 allowing points to the wide receiver. So the one thing they I guess they're decent against is allowing kind of middle of the road tight end points. So I think it's a smash spot for most of the Rams. And this is a good question. This will lead us into the running backs here. Because everyone, I mean, any website or, fantasy advice guru you go look for, they're going to say Damian Williams. He is the pickup of the week. But Khalil Herbert is a really good backup running back. And the thing about Damian Williams is I like him. He has been successful so far through 4 games as the backup. But he's already got, I think it was the hamstring injury or maybe it was the quad injury. So he's going to be limited to go this week. So if you don't get, he's obviously the pickup of the week. He's going to get a really good matchup here against the Raiders. We just saw Austin Eckler go wild last night. So I like Damian Williams this week. I just don't know the longevity of it. Like we know Montgomery's going to be out, up until the bye week, which is at least 5 games. So I like adding Damian Williams here. But if you don't get Damian Williams, you can maybe snag Khalil Herbert on the back end for free. So I'm a big fan of Khalil Herbert. If he gets the opportunity, I think he can be impressive here. And the Jets Falcons is a good game. Both teams think they can win that game. I think it's going to be a really competitive London game. And I just love waking up. For me, it's Central Time, so I wake up and there's just football 8:30 in the morning. It's London games are pretty cool. The Cowboys turnover streak doesn't worry you. The turnover streak. What's the turnover streak that they got going on? That trade turned the tides in the Fellowship League. Should I drop what's going on in Septimus? Should I drop Miles Sanders and pick up Gainwell? I don't see anyone in my league wanting him, so I can't trade him. It's frustrating because at the moment right now, Gainwell has more value than Miles Sanders. So that is pretty frustrating. But if there's an injury, if Gainwell gets hurt, what happens to Sanders? If Sanders gets hurt, what happens to Gainwell? I think I probably would hold on to Sanders for maybe one more week. If you can get Gainwell on your team, I think I would do so. But in terms of, let me just pull up old PFR. If you guys want to watch, if you guys got the time, I put out on Monday nights, I put up one of my favorite videos. I don't know if a lot of people watch it. But it's a snap count video where I go to Pro Football Reference here and I dive into the snap counts and I look to see who's getting the run, who's getting the stats. And right now, Sanders, he got 47 snaps yesterday or on Sunday compared to Gainwell's 29. So they're still using Sanders. It's just they have a role for Kenneth Gainwell in mind. He ended up getting, 8 total targets on the day to Miles Sanders' 3, 6 for 58 as a receiver, and only 3 carries. He does get kind of the red zone look there too. So I think I would maybe hold one more week on Sanders, but I'm definitely trying to get Gainwell on my rosters this week. And yes, go pick up Kenny Golladay. I think he's a wide receiver, a top 30 wide receiver the rest of the way. He's looking pretty good now that he's kind of fully recovered from his summer injuries. The Cowboys D has a turnover in the last 16 games. The Cowboys defense, man, they've been the Cowboys defense has been for fantasy. I don't care if Daniel Jones has an interception and a fumble. He's still going to get enough points with his legs that will negate that. The man runs for 40, 50 yards per clip at the moment right now. So I still like Daniel Jones, even if with the turnover or two. I don't care for fantasy. Do I drop Brandon Ayuk? It depends. For me, I'd rather have Kenny Golladay than Brandon Ayuk. So if that's the move, I approve. Trayvon, yeah, Diggs looks really good. I like watching the Cowboys offense, of course, but when they're on defense, I'm mostly looking for Trayvon Diggs. Really fun player there. And then we've recovered some fumbles in it. Yep. Cowboys defense is sneaky. I do like the Cowboys defense this week. They actually are on my list here. They're one of my highlighted players against the Giants. So even if Daniel Jones, I do like Daniel Jones because he's probably going to, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs kind of thing. So there's potential there for the Cowboys defense to get some fantasy points. Also, Corey Davis or Jamison Crowder, rest of season. That's tough because Crowder looked pretty good. Davis looked pretty good. Let me click on this Jets game here. And keep in mind, this was in overtime, so there might be a little bit inflated stats here. But Corey Davis gets 50 snaps compared to Jamison Crowder's 38. So to me, that already makes me lean Corey Davis. In terms of the targets, though, Corey Davis with 7, Jamison Crowder saw 9, 4 for 111 and a touchdown. Crowder gets 7 for 61 and a touchdown. So if you remove each guy's touchdown, Corey Davis gets 15 points. Jamison Crowder gets 13. I'm probably going to just lean with Corey Davis. But if you want something so Davis, obviously, he has a wider range of outcomes. He's a little bit more boom bust. So if you want the consistency, I will lean Crowder here. But they're kind of the same player at this point. I do think Corey Davis probably catches more touchdowns in the long run. So for me, I'm going to go with Corey Davis. I got offered Cook for Najee. I mean, as long as I mean, I don't like buying a already. The injury seal is broken with Dalvin Cook. I'd rather keep Najee Harris. He is the focal point of that offense. I know Cook is too when he's healthy, but you're buying an injured back already. I'm going to hold on to Najee Harris. Yep, everybody, let's drop Tyson Williams this week. It's never good when, I mean, anytime your player is a healthy inactive, that's an eyebrow raise. So I'm dropping Tyson Williams in the one league that I have him. I think you can do the same. As a Cowboys fan, I'm super happy about our defense. They are frisky this year. That you can tell that the attitude is there. There's really nobody taking plays off like last year. Dan Quinn has done a really good job with that. So I like the Cowboys defense. I know Daniel Jones is one of my recommendations to start this week, but I just think the Cowboys seem to, and they just keep making plays, as in Dalvin Cook. Yeah. Well, for me, I say not so fast, man. I'm not too sure. I like Dalvin Cook, but the injury seal is already broken, whereas Najee Harris, I mean, he's going to get he's just going to get a lot of catches and everything. And if we just go look at the numbers real quick, let me pull this up. I mean, Najee Harris right now in PPR leagues, he's currently the running back 4. So, I mean, and he's only scored 2 touchdowns. So if they start giving him a little bit more touchdowns, good things will happen. When Dalvin Cook is healthy, we know he's probably one of the 2 best running backs in the league. But I'm nervous about this volume holding up, this 20 to 22 carries. Again, we're in week 4 of the season, and he's already getting a little bit dinged up here. So I personally would lean with Najee. Is Elijah Mitchell a viable option anymore? I could possibly drop him for Gainwell. It sounds like Mitchell's going to be back this week. And I don't really know the 49ers backfield is just a headache, man. It really is a headache. I think long-term, especially with Trey Sermon looking good last week, you got Jeff Wilson coming back at some point. I think it looks like greener pastures for Kenneth Gainwell, so I'm probably going to go with Gainwell in this one. And I'm not going to – I mean, I don't want anything to do with Le'Veon Bell. If you can get a Kenneth Gainwell, please do it. If you can get Damian Williams, go ahead and do that. Even if you can get Brandon Bolden, I think that would be a better option right now. I just don't know if I see a lot left there for Le'Veon Bell. And yeah, Carson missed practice. And that I know it's Tuesday, but what's weird though, for a Thursday night football game, consider this. Tuesday basically equals Friday practice. So today was a big day. Like they're not going to have a huge padded practice yesterday. So Carson missing practice. I'm probably going after Alex Collins in this one because I could see short week. Maybe they just rest Chris Carson and roll Alex Collins. That wouldn't surprise me at all. They can't, but they can dump him off a lot of passes. I mean, I think Najee's passing volume is going to keep him afloat every game so far, and I mean, they still have a handful of exciting games coming up. They did play Buffalo to start the season. That is proving to be a pretty tough defense, but I mean, Najee right now 19, 28, and a 21-point output so far, and he's not even really playing well as a runner here. So he's heavily involved in the passing game. I like that ability there. And yeah, their offensive line is not great, but as long as he keeps getting 5-6 passes, I like the upside there. But let's get on point here. I got to run through the waiver wire running backs. If you guys have any running back questions, fire them up. James Conner has been a beast, 4 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Trey Sermon looks good. Again, most of these guys are well owned already, so we're going to look underneath about 60%. I like Michael Carter. Don't know if we're going to trust him this week against Atlanta, but if you're in a pinch, you could use him as a running back too. I'm holding on hope for Ronald Jones. He did score the touchdown. I'm curious if anything happens to Leonard Fournette, if Ronald Jones could be something. He's purely a handcuff at this point. J.D. Mckissick looks good. He's the Nyheim Hines, James White kind of PPR running back role. You could whip him out there. You could end up with 3 or 4 points, or you could get a 20. So start him at your own risk. But if he's out there, I want to hold on to him because if anything happens to Gibson, then we're cooking. Latavius Murray looks to be like the Baltimore Raven running back to own. He dominated the touches. I think he had 18 carries last week and a touchdown. So Murray is looking like he has emerged as the leader. Still don't really trust it. They're going to try, getting Le'Veon Bell in there. It could kind of come back down to a committee. But Kenneth Gainwell, again, we talked about him earlier. I'm starting to label these guys as we get more data on them. I mean, I think you could legit flex Kenneth. For me, I'd rather kind of like we had the question earlier. I'd almost rather start Kenneth Gainwell than Miles Sanders at this point, because so far through 4 games, we've seen Gainwell get more work in the passing game, and he's also been, the red zone running back. So Gainwell, to me, he's a handcuff, but he's also got weekly flex upside where you could whip him out and get 6 to 8 points on the low end, and then hope for the best. Peyton Barber, just a handcuff for Josh Jacobs. Le'Veon Bell, we'll see if he gets more involved this week. Giovanni Bernard, if he was released or anyone picked him up and let him go, I like stashing Gio in PPR leagues just because week 3 against the Rams, the man had 10 targets and he caught 9 of them for a touchdown. So I like Gio. If anyone lets him go, he's a PPR guy that you could hold on to. Damian Williams, again, we touched on him. He is the pickup of the week. Looking at his schedule real quick. Let me see. So Damian Williams, the next coming games here, while David Montgomery is out, he's going to get the Las Vegas Raiders. He's going to get the Green Bay Packers. Those defenses, he should be able to be productive against them. Tampa Bay, we'll see what happens when he gets there. He might have a handful of catches, but it's probably not going to be a big day for him week 7. But San Fran, Pittsburgh, those teams are allowing decent running back points. And then we would expect David Montgomery to return week 11. So I do think you're probably going to get 4 potential top 20, running back 2 games out of Damian Williams. So again, he's the preferred guy right now. If anything happens to David Montgomery's rehab or just slow to get him back going, you still have a pretty good, bench option here. Darrell Williams looks to be the handcuff to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Justin Jackson looks like the handcuff to our guy Austin Eckler. And I just want to take a minute to just say, handcuffs, man, we're in week 5 of the season. At the end of your bench, I mean, if you're carrying, 3 or 4 tight ends, or if you have, 6 receivers, you should really consider just having that last spot on your bench. Just pick up someone's handcuff because you never know what's going to happen. Like this week, we're looking at Damian Williams. We're looking at Samaje Perine in offenses where okay, this is the guy that's going to be up next if that player's hurt. All of a sudden, you beat the waiver wire, a week or 2 early, and you get rewarded for having these guys on your team already. Down here at the bottom of the list, I have Jeremy Mcnichols. He's the handcuff. Again, I think right now with the injuries at receiver for A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, Jeremy Mcnichols has some weekly flex upside. And then since I got it pulled up here, I mean, he's the backup running back. He only had 1 carry for 11 yards, but he had a whopping 12 targets last week, 8 for 74 as a wide receiver, I guess a receiving running back. I just want to pull you guys up his numbers real quick because he's involved in the offense even when the receivers were playing. So Jeremy Mcnichols, he is a sneaky PPR guy. You look at his numbers here, and this is merely an emergency play. They do play Jacksonville this week, though, but you look at the numbers, 6.3, 5.9, 8.6, and 16.5. So you can basically insert him thinking, okay, I'm for sure getting 5 to 6 points at least. If he breaks off a nice bigger play or 2, you can maybe get some points. So I like Jeremy Mcnichols as an emergency stash play for now. Brandon Bolden, he went over double digits for PPR, so I like him as well. And then Samaje Perine, especially if you're the Mixon owner, Samaje Perine should be a priority. And then, we're watching Chris Carson. Alex Collins might be a sneaky guy that you can scoop for free. But before we get to the wide receivers, I just want to look at some of these comments here. And that's fine. It's a preference call. I like the uninjured rookie back for the Steelers, I suppose. Should I hold or trade Nick Chubb in a PPR league? Hold or trade Nick Chubb? It depends on. I mean, it sucks that the last 2 weeks have been disappointing for Nick Chubb. So especially this week in a game against the Chargers, let me actually show you here. The Chargers are what we call a funnel defense. So I'm pulling this up. So I have the charts here on thefantasyfellowship.com. The LA Chargers, they allow a good amount of running back points. They kind of limited, of course, the Raiders last night, but they are pretty susceptible against the run. I'm trying to find the numbers here. The LA Chargers, they're allowing 457 yards so far to running backs. They've allowed 2 touchdowns. I just think the Browns' game plan, they're not going to want to test that secondary. They're going to want to run Nick Chubb. So personally, I would hold on to Nick Chubb for at least 1 more week. If he has a big week against the Chargers, then you could potentially flip him. So for me, I'm going to hold on to Nick Chubb, and it really depends on what you can get. If you can get a PPR back for him, I think go ahead and do it. Let me just look at the numbers real quick. So Nick Chubb in PPR, he's running back 10. I mean, if you can ask for, look at some of the names around him. If you can get a Saquon, I think that would be doable. I don't know if I want to sell him low for James Robinson or anything, but go ahead and ask with the Saquon owner, maybe ask the DeAndre Swift owner, kind of look at some of the guys around here and see who you maybe would rather have on your team. But the wide receivers, this is a lengthy list this week. Sterling Shepard and Michael Gallup, they are both, listed as out IR. You can stash them if they've been dropped. Curtis Samuel, first game back last week. And with Logan Thomas having a hamstring thing right now, we might see Curtis Samuel more involved. So I'm interested there. Devontae Parker, though, he's one of the sleepers, I think, this week. He's 55% rostered. If you can snag him, I think he's an interesting guy with Will Fuller with the broken finger, and who knows how long he's not going to be on the field for. Rondale Moore, we're still holding on hope for Rondale Moore, but he's looking like a, kind of just like a gimmick player at the moment right now. They don't want to get him too involved. I really like Emmanuel Sanders, though. Sanders is playing really good football. I just want to see where he's ranked right now because he's been really dependable. As far as wide receivers go, let me hit by position rank. And Emmanuel Sanders sitting here at wide receiver 23. Let's look at his numbers real quick. I mean, what's cool about him is you like the volume. He's getting 8 targets, 6, 6, and 6 targets. So you like that volume here. His low is 48 yards. He's a piece of this offense, and touchdowns are going to kind of flow in and out of his box scores throughout the rest of the year. They get the Kansas City Chiefs this week, so he knows that team well, having played against them, being on the Broncos. So I like Emmanuel Sanders as a scoop this week if he's still out there. Marquez Callaway, don't really trust the Saints offense, but Hunter Renfro, I think Hunter Renfro is one of those really underrated guys. You just look at the picture of him and you're like, this is him. Let me see. Why can't I find Hunter Renfro? He's been over double digits in all the games so far this season. You look at these numbers right now, 13 points, 10 points, 18 points, and 16 points. And also, too, the volume. He's never had less than 6 targets in a game, 9, 7, 6, and 8. And he's had more than 45 receiving yards in every game. So I trust the volume here. If he's available in your league, I think he can be just locked in as a wide receiver 3 flex play. Darnell Mooney, I talked about him a little bit earlier. I like Mooney. And I think Justin Fields likes him too. He seems to have a really strong connection and he trusts him. So Mooney is a fun play. Christian Kirk, Tim Patrick, Sammy Watkins, AJ Green, we're still holding on to those guys. If you can get one of those guys still, I like them as, a fringe wide receiver 3 flex play every week going forward right now. Josh Gordon, we haven't really talked much about him. It sounds like he might play this Sunday right away. So he's kind of a fun guy where, again, I talked about the handcuffs for running backs. If you just have an extra spot on your roster to burn, and say you're holding somebody that you just, I don't know what I'm going to do with this guy every week, you might as well pick up Josh Gordon and see what happens with him. I mean, if he comes out and looks good for 1 week, great. If it looks like a work in progress, we'll reevaluate down the road. But I like Josh Gordon. Jamison Crowder, only under 15% rostered. He needs to be picked up. He's probably one of the priorities this week. I'm probably going to add some more stars to his name. So I like Jamison Crowder, Emmanuel Sanders, if you can get him. Randall Cobb, I just don't know how sticky those numbers are going to be week to week. And then Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson was one of the receivers here that caught my eye. He is currently wide receiver 36. His numbers have been steadily increasing. 16 points week 1, he had that massive touchdown, but 2.4, 8.2, and 21. So 3 out of 4 weeks have been rather successful. I think you'll take an 8.2. You don't love it, but two good hits, a 16 and a 21. That's what you want. He scores 2 touchdowns. And then the targets, 3, 3, 6, and 6. So if he starts getting up there in targets, I'm going to like what we get there. And again, he plays Seattle, the Giants, Detroit, Houston, Tennessee. The schedule coming up for the Rams is fantastic. So if you can, another guy here, another buy low moment right now is Robert Woods, because the Robert Woods owners, they're frustrated for kind of no reason. Bob Woods is sitting here at wide receiver 38, and you look at his numbers in 3 games over double digits. 12.4, 12 points, 14.8. He's caught 2 touchdowns. He's getting some targets. His yards are low, but one of these days he's going to have a big Bob Woods game. And just look at this schedule coming up. The Seahawks, the Giants, the Lions, the Texans, the Titans, and the San Francisco 49ers. Coming back after the bye, he gets the Packers, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Vikings, and the Baltimore Ravens. I absolutely love the LA Rams schedule for the rest of the season. I'm trying to get these guys. If you can get Cooper Kupp, Bob Woods, pay for these guys. These are some of the players that I think you want on your team for the rest of the season. Kadarius Tony, he actually looked pretty good in his big, starting role last week. I think he had 13.6 fantasy points. So if you want to stash him, he's worth a spot stash. And then just some names to monitor down here. Any week that Claypool, Deontay, or Juju are out, James Washington looks like he's going to be clicking with Ben Roethlisberger. Chester Rogers was the leading receiver for Tennessee last week. Khalif Raymond. I know it's weird thinking about Detroit Lions receivers, but Khalif Raymond has been playing actually pretty well the last few weeks. Looking at the numbers here, he's wide receiver 43 on the season. Let's open these up here. I have to sneeze. My bad. But Khalif Raymond here, in the last 2 weeks, you see 10 targets, 6 targets, 68 yards, and 46 yards, and then the 2 touchdowns. So just a trend I've noticed here. If you want to stash someone, the guy Khalif Raymond here looks to be like a trusted target so far for Jared Goff. Quintez Cephas has also been pretty trustworthy. You look at what he's been doing. 3 out of 4 games, he's had double digits, 12, 16, and 12.3. The target, 7, 7. I don't know what happened in this Baltimore Ravens game. And then 5 here. So I'm interested in Cephas at the end of my bench. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown finally had a big game here, 6 for 70 on 8 targets. So I'm curious about Detroit. They're still pretty pesky. They're going to, be competitive most weeks. And then Freddie Swain, he's the clear wide receiver 3 for the Seahawks. I listened to Russell Wilson's press conference earlier today, and he was talking Freddie Swain up. So if Lockett, again, I talked about the injury seal on players being broken already. Tyler Lockett's already dinged up with a hip injury. If anything happens to Tyler Lockett, Freddie Swain is going to be a name that we're all looking at on the waiver wire. And then John Ross. I don't know where John Ross came from, but he came in and just had a really nice game for the Giants last week. But let's get into the tight ends real quick. I'm assuming Mike Gesicki is rostered. If he's available, I like him quite a bit. But if you need a tight end for the rest of the season, there's 2 guys that you need to go out and get. It's going to be Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox here. Dawson Knox, one of the snap count leaders for tight ends here. I'm going to pull this up right now and show you guys. In terms of snap counts, specifically for the tight end position, you're looking at George Kittle leading the league in tight end snaps, Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce, and Dawson Knox comes in at number 5. Tyler Conklin at number 6. You come down a little bit, you get Dalton Schultz just outside the top 10. So Knox and Schultz are on the field a lot this year, and so far, through just 5 games, these guys are both top 5 fantasy tight ends, which is pretty amazing. Schultz comes in as tight end number 3. Dawson Knox comes in at tight end number 5. So I like these guys both quite a bit. I think they, as far as it goes right now, these guys are probably just set it and forget it. You'll take what you get. On the low end, sure, you can get a 3.8, but I think he's probably going to settle probably in that 7 to 10 fantasy points per game range. You just look at the targets. He's a good piece of the Dallas offense. And then Dawson Knox, so far through 4 games, he's low targets, 3, 4, and 5, but he gets the 8 against Houston, and then the fantasy points, 8, 9, 14.9, and the 20.7. 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. And then again, as much as I like the Rams schedule, the Buffalo Bills schedule is really nice. They get Kansas City, defense is not very good there, Tennessee, Miami, Jacksonville, the Jets, the Colts, the Saints, the Patriots, the Bucs. So it gets kind of rough down here, but I like the next coming stretch before I forgot what I was going to say. But anyways, looking at these tight ends, Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox, those are my guys. I like Hunter Henry if he's available. Jared Cook is still a reliable, good tight end for fantasy. Evan Ingram, still don't really trust him. Tyler Conklin, he's still got 6 targets last week, so he's worth a hold. I do think Zach Ertz has just as much value as Dallas Goedert. Those guys are going to probably trade off touchdowns almost any given week here, but Ertz actually had more targets than Goedert last week. So if Ertz is hanging around, he could be your tight end 2 or your fringe starting tight end. Gerald Everett, we'll see if he clears COVID and is ready to go for Thursday. Cameron Brate with Gronk likely out week 5. Cameron Brate, he split snaps with OJ Howard, but he was more targeted. He's the more trustworthy option if you want a tight end there. And then some sleepers down here. First of all, if anything happens to Blake to Dalton Schultz. Blake Jarwin's going to be the guy that you want. But Max Williams looks to have a nice role with Kyler Murray. Dan Arnold, we'll see if he grows a role in Jacksonville. And then CJ Uzomah had that breakout Thursday night football game. Something's happening in Indy. Mo Alley-Cox got the run there. He also got the 2 touchdowns last week. And then with Logan Thomas hurt right now, Ricky Seals-Jones is that next man up. Let me look at some questions here. Is Jared Cook a good pickup if I have Justin Herbert? He's a good pickup. I would ask you, Harris, like who else is your tight ends that you have on the the roster already? I'd be curious. I like Jared Cook. He should be rostered in 10 and 12 man leagues. He should be rostered, so he's a fun tight end there. Manny Fresh. I picked up Knox before Sunday's games, but I started Noah Fant. Yeah, man, I had Noah. No, I didn't have Noah Fant. I had Tyler Conklin. I started someone else in another league too, and I had Dawson Knox on my bench in one league. But Dawson Knox looks good. I was nervous about that rain game. It looked good at the beginning when I was watching that game, but Dawson Knox, I think he's at this point, if you have Knox and you don't have another viable tight end, you're probably just going to want to leave Knox in your lineup the rest of the way for now or until further notice. There are 2 receivers I think would be good stashes: Rashad Bateman and Jerry Jeudy. My current receivers are McLaurin, JJ, Deontay, Devonta, Corey Davis, and Christian Kirk. Do I move anyone for either? It's a super flex league, which is why I have lots of receivers. Okay, so there are 2 receivers. Yeah, I like Bateman. I like Jerry Jeudy. I like Michael Gallup if you can get him. Let me see. And sometimes, like, if you guys are curious, I don't know if you play on ESPN Fantasy, but you can actually check IR eligible and just see who's out there in terms of all the positions. So, I mean, Gerald Everett right now, he's on the COVID list. We'll filter here by fantasy points too. But there's some guys here: Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Jarvis Landry. There's some useful players: Jerry Jeudy, Michael Gallup. Some interesting names here if you search for the IR. So I like stashing guys if you can. But we're asking the question here. My current receivers are McLaurin, Jefferson, Deontay, Devonta, Corey Davis, and Christian Kirk. Do I move anyone for either? As in, do you drop someone to pick up? Jerry Jeudy should be picked up. That's the one guy I want for sure. Rashad Bateman, we still don't know. I really don't know how much volume there is in that Ravens passing game, but I really, really, really want Jerry Jeudy on this team. If I had to let someone go, it'd probably be Christian Kirk, if that helps at all. Again, I like Bateman, but he's still a rookie receiver in a low-volume passing offense. Marquis Brown's healthy, and so is Sammy Watkins. Mark Andrews is there. I think Bateman's probably the 4th target, whereas when Jeudy comes back, if he's good to go, he could be that number 1 target again. Well, this was like a one-game instance here where they were up 17 points in the 4th quarter, and also A.J. Dillon was running good earlier in the game. Aaron Jones was on the injury report with that ankle. It might have just been, hey, let's just get him a good rest. We don't need to stress Aaron Jones out here. A.J. Dillon looks good. So I'm not overly concerned right now. And we know that, like, when the game's on the line, Aaron Jones is going to be in the game. So it should be a fun game against the Bengals. So Harris has Brait and Gronkowski. Yeah, we're going to want to get Jared Cook on the lineup, I think. I mean, I'd probably rather hold Jared Cook the rest of the season than Cameron Brait. So that's probably what I would do. And then we're going on about 30 minutes here. I'll hang out for another 2 or 3 minutes. If you guys got any more questions, fire them up. But I'll go another couple minutes here. James Robinson or Javonte or Murray or Gainwell. Start one. I think you're starting James Robinson. Going forward, James Robinson in that offense. I do want to look at let's look at the Jaguars' schedule real quick because that might give us some things here. But they play Tennessee this week. So I really like that. And it just seems like they're slowly figuring out what to do with James Robinson. But this is a good schedule for them. They get the Titans, the Dolphins, and the Seahawks. If we look at fantasy points allowed here, again, that's the Titans who are allowing, where are they? The Titans allow about 20.7 PPR points there. What else did we say? The Dolphins and the Seahawks here. The Miami Dolphins and the Seahawks are the 2nd and 3rd worst teams against the running back. So I think the next 3 weeks, I'm locking James Robinson into my lineups each week. So I like the matchup there. I think with the Chark injury, you might see James Robinson a little bit more used as a weapon and a receiver, and maybe lean down on the running game a little bit more. So I enjoy those guys a lot. James Robinson looks like a good running back the next few weeks. But this was fun. If you guys want to hang out tomorrow night, I'll be going live same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. We'll do the start sits. I'll pull this up real quick just to show you guys what we got cooking in there right now. I do have all of them, I guess, preliminary, in there for now. But week 5 start sits. Again, you can look at all the charts here. But go ahead and take a gander at them. I'm going to go over the practice reports and stuff tomorrow, and we'll get a good idea about what's happening for the rest of the week and the rest of week 5. So thank you guys so much for your time. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.